This is Kent Hance, best storyteller in Texas. Saying of the day, life is like riding a bicycle. You got to stay balanced and keep moving. I always like that. Today's program, usually we try to hit on a couple of subjects and try to stay close together on. But today, there is no reasoning behind this. We're going to talk about Camp David and its impact on foreign affairs and national affairs. We're going to talk about cockfighting. I had one of the listeners want to know if it had been outlawed, and we're going to talk about that a little. We're going to talk about gerrymandering. And so, if somebody wants to write me and tell me how those three connect, it'll be fine. But just so I don't get any nasty letters, we're not for, we're against cockfighting, and it's been outlawed in the United States. But let's go back to Camp David. Camp David originally was a naval training area and in the mountains of Maryland in Frederick County. And it was used by the Navy, and then FDR decided it ought to be a presidential retreat. And he had it fixed up and changed the name to Shangri-La, and which doesn't sound like a presidential name to me. It sounds like a cheap bar in South Houston or something. But they changed the name, and he had it redone and was there to take people to Camp David for the weekend or whenever to talk to them about various issues. The person that really changed it the most, though, was President Eisenhower. And he renamed it for his grandson, David Eisenhower. So that's the reason it's named Camp David. And so in the early 50s, he started really fixing it up. And it's got about 20 cabins. It's got a main place for the president. It's got a dining hall. And it's got a golf course. I was up there one time, and the golf course is 3 holes, but they have 3 approaches to each hole. So it's like playing 9 holes, and it's real nice. And then Reagan had them fix up the riding area, and so he could ride up and down the hills, and he loved to ride horses. And Reagan loved the Camp David. He liked to go every Thursday afternoon or Friday afternoon, and really enjoyed it, and was a way to get away from everything that was going on. And it also has a swimming pool, and it has a skeet shooting range. And I just wonder, if a bunch of people go out there, they didn't do it when I was there, and want to do skeet shooting if they, let the president go or, whatever. That was, and of course it's got the helipad so that Marine One can land there. And because of all the staff, you have barracks for the staff. And but it's nice, it's rustic, but it's very peaceful, very quiet, and it has been well received. In 1943, Churchill and FDR met there starting in 43 to plan the invasion, and they'd have their top generals there with them, and they'd be planning the invasion of Europe to take over the countries that the Nazis had occupied. And that was the first big foreign meeting that they had there. I guess the most famous one was in 1978 when they had the Camp David Accord meeting, and that was the highlight for President Carter. That was his pinnacle of doing something that really had an impact on the world. And that's when he got Anwar Sadat and Mackin Begin together for a number of days, over a week, and worked out an accord where they had peace between Egypt and Israel. And they'd been fighting a long time, and I think they were tired of it. The Egyptians were tired of getting whipped, and the Israelis were tired of whipping them. And so they finally worked something out, and they have not had any wars since. And that Egypt stayed out of their fights. Egypt's made it known in the Middle East that we're not going into that. We're not going to do it. And so that's been a big step. I think that you look at the Nobel Peace Prize in '78 went to Sadat and Begin, Carter, and when that was signed was in '79, February '79, and I was there at the White House when it was signed. I'd just been elected to Congress. In fact, I was seated next to Chuck Grassley, who's still in Congress. Yeah. You know, if I served with somebody and they're still there, they have a lot of seniority. And Grassley is a different guy. Grassley looks at everything, is that right or wrong? And he's got good principles, good foundation, and is a good member, and I was extremely well represented. But he's not a jovial guy, and he sat down beside me and introduced himself. And I said, well, I'm a new member. I'm Texas. He said, what committee are you on? And I said, I'm on the Ag Committee. And he is on the Ag Committee. Mm-hmm. I'm on the Ag Committee with you. He said, really? And he kind of moved my shoulder forward and looked at the back of my head, and he said, I recognize you mowed. You sat in front of me. You know, thank you, Senator. Glad you recognize my mow. And he is an unusual guy. At one time we had a fundraiser for him in Houston, and a woman came to the fundraiser, and she said, I am from Iowa. My father was so-and-so, and he was county chairman at such and such, was a good friend of yours. Do you remember him? And Grassley goes, no. And, you know, most politicians, somebody say, do you remember that? Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. You know, they kind of, but, I mean, he just told her the truth. No. Mm-hmm. She went, oh, okay. She just kind of walked on off, mm-hmm. you know. And, but Grassley, he's a guy that shoots straight with you. And he was there at the Camp David Accord signing, and which was an unusual time, and was a lot of fun to be there. It was a nice day for February in Washington, D.C. We're fortunate in that regard. In late 50s, Eisenhower he'd have people over, and he had Khrushchev over. And, you know, Khrushchev came to the United States, and he spoke at the UN and took his shoe off and hammered on the desk and looked like an idiot when he did that. But Khrushchev, they took him down to the bowling alley, and Eisenhower had a bowling alley installed. It had 2 lanes. And so Eisenhower was going to bowl with him, and Khrushchev didn't know anything about bowling, but he told him what to do and everything. And so Eisenhower threw the ball first. He rolled, and Khrushchev was saying something, and then started just kind of screaming, look. Mm-hmm. And what he saw was the automatic pin setup machine. He had never seen anything like that. Wow. He saw that you'd have, what he had seen in the past was you'd have people that were down there, and they'd set the pins back up, and it'd take them a little while to do that. And he later told some of his people, that's the reason we can win against them. They spend their money trying to come up with things like setting the pins up, and that we spend our money on military and everything. Mm-hmm. Well, he didn't take into consideration the video games, things like that when Syria and Israel got in a fight in the 70s, the Syrians were flying MiGs, the best plane that Russia had, and the Israelis were flying American-made planes. And the Israelis shot all their planes down, just about. They had very few left. And, it's just like on an airplane now. I have a Cirrus plane, which those are new and very popular, and they're single engine, and they don't have a steering wheel, they have a joystick. And the screens in front of you, instead of having a bunch of gauges, you have 2 video screens. And those video screens, it's like you're playing some video game. Mm-hmm. And they tell you, if a plane's within 25 miles, and if it's what height that it's at, and what, how to avoid them and everything like that. But the Israeli pilots had grown up in a more advanced society, as far as playing games, video games, and flying and things like that. And the Khrushchev was really impressed with the pen machines that would pick up the, bowling pins, and but could not get over that. And the other thing he liked was a pinball machine. Oh. They didn't have a bunch of pinball machines in Russia, but he loved to play the pinball machine. And so they'd let him, and they finally, somebody sent him one. Mm-hmm. So he'd have something to do, and maybe instead of making, atomic missiles, he would a
pinball machine in the Kremlin.
Yeah.
That'd be funny to see.
But Clinton was one that he stayed there every Thanksgiving. And President George W. Bush visited Camp David in his 8 years 149 times and stayed there 487 days.
Wow.
He liked it. Mm-hmm. And he liked to get away from Washington. You can clear your mind up there. I went up with a group. Not many congressmen get to go, and when I was carrying Reagan's tax cut, he got me to some voters that were undecided on whether they were going to vote with Reagan or not. We took them up on a Sunday, had lunch there at Camp David, and visited with the president, and walked around the grounds some. But it's a great place. It has really helped in some regards on setting different standards and having different type of congressional groups from other countries. Jimmy Carter had an unusual event in that he had a group of Japanese, and he told a joke, and Carter wasn't a guy. Reagan could tell a joke, but that wasn't Carter's cup of tea. And he told a joke, and the Japanese just laughed, and so later Carter asked his interpreter, why was that joke so funny? And she said, the interpreter said, President's telling a joke I don't understand, and so when I tell you to start laughing, y'all laugh, and that's true. That's what the guy had done.
That's funny.
Y'all laugh a bunch. We want the president to feel like that we're behind him, and that everything's in good shape. Obama had the G8 meeting up there, and had them watch some of the World Cup soccer games, and he didn't use it as much as most people do. He liked the White House. And when Eisenhower was there, he had Harold Macmillan, who was the Prime Minister of Great Britain, United Kingdom, back in the 50s. And he would always he'd have a dinner, and then he'd show a movie. Mm-hmm. And the White House has a room. They can show you a movie or something. If you get invited for that, that means your vote's special on something coming up. They're working you. And Harold Macmillan did not like the movies. They were the old Western shoot-'em-ups. He didn't necessarily like them. And Eisenhower had seen all of them, several times. He loved them. And that Macmillan got where he would say, well, he wasn't feeling well, and he needed to study up on some things and try to get out. But he told his staff, try to make sure that we're not trapped in a 2.5-hour movie. And there's nothing worse than getting trapped in a movie that's not any good. Mm-hmm. And so Macmillan, that was his whole thing about coming over to visit. He wanted to make sure his staff understood, don't get me in that movie. I don't be stuck in that. The helicopter trip, as mentioned before, that takes about 30 minutes. So you take off on the lawn of the White House, and 30 minutes you're there. Mm-hmm. It's like a different world. And I can certainly understand why they would want to get away. And they'll have people come up for briefings. They fly in there on a Thursday or Friday, and they'll have different people on certain meetings for Friday night or Saturday, or they'll have some relaxing time, but they'll also have some time that they're going to do some work. President, people talk about a vacation day. Doesn't matter who it is, you don't have a vacation day. Mm-hmm. there's not a day that you're going to not do something. First of all, you're going to get a briefing on world affairs, every morning. They're going to update you on what's happening, especially in the hot spots. But I think, Camp David is quite a place. It's not open to the public. You can't get tours there or anything. But if you ever get a chance to go, we'll go. It was exciting for me just to be there.
Didn't President Reagan have Gorbachev there and the famous "let's just go for a walk" moment? Yeah. And that happened at Camp David, right?
That was at Camp David,
right?
And that's when he was talking to him about the Soviet Union, the breakup, and also bringing down the wall. Mm-hmm. And that when they brought down the wall, I noticed this guy that got the Democrat nomination in New York City is saying that for mayor that he's going to set up grocery stores, government-run grocery stores, and that when they broke down the wall, the people in West Germany didn't run over to those communist-owned grocery stores in East Germany. It was just the opposite. The East Germans were wanted to, they wanted some place where they could get groceries. Mm-hmm. There's the old story about the guy that went into a shop in East Germany, and the bananas were $1 each or something like that. He said, "Isn't that a little high? Your competitor, sell them for 50 cents. And he said, "We'll go buy them for him." He said, "Well, he's out." The guy said, "When I'm out, I sell them for a quarter." And so that government-owned grocery stores will not work, and it's everywhere it's been tried, it's been a failure. So it's interesting to see what's happening and going to happen in that campaign for mayor in New York. It's it's unusual, and so there. I noticed Nancy Pelosi was on TV last night or night before last and said that she's not endorsing in the race yet. She wished him luck or something like that. Now Elizabeth Warren's already been down there and been on TV with him and saying he's my guy and let's support him. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And of course, he's telling people that you're going to have lower prices and we're going to have housing. It'll be cheaper and be better. And those promises are.
Those things are easy to say.
Easy to say, hard to implement. I noticed that in Fort Worth, in Eagle Lake, they caught a 10-foot alligator weighed 130 pounds. And that's highly unusual for that area. Usually it gets so cold in the winter they can't make it. Mm-hmm. But the Parks and Wildlife people came and caught it and relocated it.
To some neighborhood in Houston.
Some neighborhood, someplace. They didn't say when asked where they, relocated, they didn't say. Also, one other item that in Maryland, there was a lady that this guy owed her $7, and she got a can of gasoline, poured it on his front door, and set it on fire. And that has to fit in the stupid category, stupid criminals that try to burn somebody's house down over $7 or over anything. Also, we're going to talk about cockfighting. There are books on cockfighting going back to 1607.
Wow.
And in some areas, it's culturally. I wouldn't go if they paid me to go. I don't want to see it. But it's illegal in all the states. It's where they still do it, it's moved around quite a bit. Now, where it's very popular is in the Philippines and Vietnam. And they have arenas in Vietnam where it's recorded, and they do instant replays. They have commentators.
Like we do boxing.
Yeah, like boxing or football or basketball, any sport. And in Haiti, it's considered the national sport. Not soccer, but, cockfighting. And they put spurs and razor blades on their legs, and so it's a bloody sport, and it's a sport usually to the death, and many times both roosters will die or bleed to death.
And you said it has been outlawed in all 50 states here.
Right.
Yeah, okay. And you
Louisiana
are, I want to be clear,
last.
you are against this.
I'm against it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, somebody don't waste your time writing me a nasty letter saying we were promoting. We're just pointing out that's a fight that worldwide certain groups are still trying to stop it. The Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals trying to stop it. You know, and they did that. You remember back when the football player for Virginia Tech, he got caught up in a dog fighting ring.
Michael Vick.
Michael Vick.
Yeah.
And that it's not, you know, those are not humane deals, and that says something about them. Last thing I want to mention is gerrymandering. This has been going on for a long time, and gerrymandering is where a political party that's in control, they're setting up maps for people to run where they'll get more of their party elected. And that Texas, President Trump wanted Texas to do that in hopes they could pick up 5 seats. And you have areas like in Amarillo, you got Ronnie Jackson. He goes all the way down to Denton. Well, they'll try to give some of his Republicans to an area that's got Democrats if they can. Same thing with Jody Arrington in Lubbock. He goes down to Granbury. And they're trying to give them a little more population so they will have a competitive seat. And so some of these people that have seats where they win by 75 to 80% of the vote, their numbers would come down to the 60s probably. And other people would then have a competitive race. The Democrats fled the scene, and there's ongoing action on that. And they always have to come back at some time. I mean, they're not going to move there and live there and start a business there. And that it usually comes at some point in time that they have to, say, we're coming back. Speaker Burrows signed some legislation to have them apprehended and brought back. The governor has taken some action, and the Attorney General, Ken Paxton and Governor Abbott have taken action. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But the gerrymandering, I think it's funny that either side takes the position that they're innocent and they've never done. That's whoever's in power. That's what they try to do. And the Democrats are in power in Illinois and California and Massachusetts, New York, and they've got some odd districts. Mm-hmm. You're talking about gerrymandering. They have it big time, and they're against what's happening in Texas now. Give me a break. That happens, and the Republicans will be against what happened in New York or California, and so that's most people see that as being a hypocrite in politics either way.
Are the Democrats kind of bent because they're doing this mid-decade? Yeah,
and they're mad about that, and a lot of people say, well, this should be but population. One of the things that President Trump has done, said it should be citizens, that the census should count, not every person, and it'll be interesting to see what the Supreme Court says in that regard. Mm-hmm. No one, whether you like him or dislike him, no one has done as much in 7 months, now a little over 7, as Trump. He's changed everything. And no one's also seen as many courts show up and say, well, you can't do this, you can't do this. And so that's an ongoing fight. And they're hoping to slow down any change and be able to beat him at the polls and take back control of the House. If they take back control of the House, they'll spend all their time on impeachments, and we've been down through that, and that's not going to, House may impeach somebody, but they're not going to convict them. Over in the Senate, they've got a majority. Even if they didn't have a majority, they don't have 2/3. So it's interesting to see what will be happening. But the gerrymandering is the deal where the party in control of the state, they try to rig it so they get more members of Congress, period. And it's not illegal. unless it violates certain statutes, and that any party in power is going to try to do it to help themselves and help their party.
Do you have a prediction how this ends in Texas?
I think they'll probably pass it the way it is, and then it'll be up to a 3-judge panel whether they approve it or not. Mm-hmm. And if they approve it, that's we'll see what happens then. But this will be tied up in court for some time, where it may make a change. The primary next year is supposed to be on March the 3rd, and if 3-judge panel gets this, and they may postpone it, the primary, and it's been postponed before. That's how I think Ted Cruz beat David Dewhurst. They got it postponed, and Ted Cruz was new in the race, and he finally won. But he needed more time to win. It gave him additional time.
Speaking of Senator Cruz, there's a great interview, 2-part interview with Senator Cruz in our library. We encourage you to go back through and listen to that and many of the other episodes that we have recorded over the last few years. There's some really good stuff, so just scroll down and look for one that looks good to you.
I think that, Senator Cruz and we also had Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. I didn't ask them political questions about tax cuts or tariffs or anything like that. I just wanted them to tell us how did they get to that position. Mm-hmm. And Dan Patrick had some funny stories to tell. He had funny stories to tell about being a sports announcer and being a weatherman and mm-hmm. being on TV as a news anchor. And then Cruz had some great stories to tell about how he got on the Supreme Court clerk list. Mm-hmm. That he was a clerk there at the U.S. Supreme Court, and that's very few people get that. But Cruz did, and it's a great. Those are great stories, and remember, regardless of what your politics are, I think you'll enjoy hearing how somebody got to the point they are today.
I agree.
Saying of the day was, life is like riding a bicycle. You got to be balanced, and you got to have a good day.